Pull into any Australian mechanic's workshop and have a look around. Past the hoists and the tool chests and the rows of branded lubricants and cleaning products that line the shelves at prices that would make you wince if you look too closely. Now ask the mechanic what he uses to clean battery terminals, what he reaches for when there is oxidation on electrical contacts, what cuts through grease on engine components before a detailed inspection. There is a reasonable chance he will not tell you hydrogen peroxide. There is an even better chance that whatever he does tell you comes in a branded bottle with a logo on it and costs 4 to 8 times what the active ingredient inside it would cost you at the pharmacy down the road. This is not a coincidence. And it is not because the branded products are categorically better. It is because the automotive aftermarket in Australia is a multi-billion-dollar industry built substantially on the principle that car owners do not know what actually works, and that ignorance is worth charging a premium for. Hydrogen peroxide is one of the most useful, most versatile, and most underutilized substances available to Australian car owners right now. It is sitting on the shelf at your local chemist for a few dollars. It has applications across vehicle maintenance that most mechanics either do not know about or have very good financial reasons not to tell you about. And understanding what it can do and what it cannot do, because honesty matters here, will save you money, save you trips to the workshop for problems you can handle yourself, and give you a level of understanding about your own vehicle that the automotive industry has never been particularly motivated to help you develop. Here are 10 things about hydrogen peroxide that Australian mechanics are not rushing to put on their workshop walls. Number 1. It cleans battery terminals better than most dedicated products. Battery terminal corrosion is one of the most common and most preventable causes of starting problems in Australian vehicles, and it is also one of the most reliably profitable sources of workshop revenue for mechanics who charge labor rates to do something that takes 4 minutes and costs essentially nothing if you know what to use. The white and blue-green crystalline buildup that forms on battery terminals is a combination of lead sulfate and copper sulfate compounds produced by the electrochemical reaction between the battery's sulfuric acid vapor and the metal of the terminals and clamps. It is mildly corrosive, it impedes electrical conductivity, and left unaddressed, it will eventually cause starting problems, charging issues, and premature battery failure. Hydrogen peroxide, the standard 3% solution available from any chemist, reacts with these corrosion compounds in a way that lifts and neutralizes them effectively. Apply it to the corroded terminals with a small brush or an old toothbrush. Observe the fizzing reaction that indicates it is working, allow it to sit for a minute, and wipe clean. Follow with a rinse of clean water, dry thoroughly, and apply a thin layer of petroleum jelly or dedicated terminal protector spray to slow future corrosion. The branded battery terminal cleaners that mechanics stock and sell perform the same basic chemical function using the same or similar active chemistry, frequently at prices that are multiples of what a bottle of pharmacy hydrogen peroxide costs. The mechanic is not necessarily being dishonest when he recommends the branded product. He is just not being forthcoming about the alternative. Number 2. It can restore yellowed headlight lenses. Partially, headlight lens yellowing is an epidemic on Australian roads, partly because the UV intensity in this country is among the highest in the world, and partly because the polycarbonate plastic used in modern headlight lenses degrades when its UV protective coating breaks down. Yellowed and oxidized lenses do not just look terrible, they reduce light output significantly and represent a genuine safety concern on country roads at night. The automotive detailing market offers headlight restoration kits at prices ranging from $20 to well over $100, most of which use abrasive compounds and UV sealers to mechanically remove the oxidized surface layer and reapply protection. Hydrogen peroxide offers a chemical approach to the same problem. Applied to a clean headlight lens, either wiped on with a cloth or applied in a paste mixed with a mild abrasive like baking soda, hydrogen peroxide's oxidizing properties can break down the surface layer of UV-degraded polycarbonate and restore a meaningful degree of clarity. The results vary significantly depending on the depth of the oxidation and the specific polycarbonate formulation used in the lens. Surface oxidation responds well. Deep yellowing that has penetrated through multiple layers of the lens material will require mechanical abrasion rather than chemical treatment alone. The important caveat, and this is genuine honesty rather than hedging, is that hydrogen peroxide treatment, without the application of a UV protective sealer afterwards, will result in rapid re-yellowing, sometimes within weeks. The treatment removes the oxidized layer, but does not replace the UV protection that prevented the oxidation in the first place. Use hydrogen peroxide as the cleaning and oxidation removal stage, and follow it with a quality UV sealant to extend the results. Mechanics who do headlight restoration charge for labor and materials on a job that most car owners can do themselves in an afternoon with a few dollars of materials. Number 3. It is genuinely useful for interior mold and mildew. Australian vehicles, particularly those in Queensland, the Northern Territory, and coastal areas where humidity is consistently high, are vulnerable to mold and mildew growth in the cabin. Water ingress through window seals, wet floor mats left in place, damp items stored in the vehicle, and the generally high ambient humidity of tropical and subtropical Australian climates create conditions where mold colonies can establish themselves quickly in carpet, upholstery, and the foam padding beneath seat covers. The conventional automotive response to cabin mold involves specialist detailing services, antibacterial chemical treatments, and in severe cases, the removal and replacement of affected carpet and upholstery, all at prices that reflect the labor intensity of the work rather than the cost of the chemistry involved. Hydrogen peroxide at 3% concentration is an effective antifungal and antibacterial agent that will kill mold colonies on contact, including on porous surfaces like carpet and fabric upholstery. Spray or apply to affected areas. Allow adequate contact time, 10 to 15 minutes is the general guidance, and then blot rather than rub to avoid spreading spores. Multiple treatments may be required for established mold colonies. For severe infestations, a stronger concentration of 6 to 10% hydrogen peroxide may be appropriate, but test on an inconspicuous area first because higher concentrations can bleach certain fabric dyes. The critical associated step is addressing the source of the moisture that allowed the mold to establish in the first place. Hydrogen peroxide kills existing mold, but cannot prevent re-establishment if the underlying moisture issue is not resolved. Number 4. It cleans fuel injectors, but not in the way you think. The fuel injector cleaning industry in Australia is a reliable source of revenue for mechanics and workshops, partly because fuel injector deposits are a genuine and real problem for modern direct injection engines, and partly because the line between legitimate maintenance and unnecessary upselling is one that not every workshop observes with complete scrupulous. Hydrogen peroxide does not clean fuel injectors in the sense of being added to the fuel system or used in an ultrasonic cleaning bath in the way that dedicated injector cleaning solutions are. What it does is provide a useful cleaning capability for the external components of the fuel system: the fuel rail, the injector bodies, the throttle body, and intake manifold, where accumulated oil, carbon deposits, and grime can be effectively removed using hydrogen peroxide as a cleaning agent. For the carbon deposits that build up inside direct injection engines, on the intake valves, and the combustion chamber surfaces, hydrogen peroxide has limited direct application without mechanical assistance. However, as a pre-soak agent for components that have been removed for cleaning, it can assist in loosening and lifting carbon buildup before mechanical removal. It is most useful here as a supplementary tool rather than a standalone solution. The broader point about the fuel injector cleaning industry is that the frequency with which many Australian mechanics recommend injector cleaning services, often at service intervals where the vehicle's actual injector condition does not warrant it, is worth being aware of before you accept the recommendation. Number 5. It removes water spots from glass and paint. Water spots on automotive glass and paintwork are caused by the mineral deposits left behind when water evaporates from the surface, calcium and magnesium compounds that bond to the surface and resist removal by washing alone. On glass, they create vision-impairing haze. On paintwork, left long enough, they can etch into the clear coat and cause permanent damage. The detailing industry offers a range of dedicated water spot removers that are, in most cases, mild acid solutions designed to dissolve the alkaline mineral deposits through a neutralization reaction. Hydrogen peroxide offers a similar chemical action for fresh and moderate water spots that have not yet etched into the surface. Applied to affected glass with a microfiber cloth, hydrogen peroxide will dissolve fresh mineral deposits effectively. On paintwork, use with more caution. Work on cool surfaces in shade, apply sparingly, and rinse promptly to avoid any risk to the paint's clear coat. For etched water spots that have been left long enough to physically degrade the surface, hydrogen peroxide will not restore the damage. Mechanical polishing is the appropriate intervention at that stage. Number 6. It deodorizes the interior far more effectively than hanging air fresheners. Every mechanic's workshop has a rotating display of pine tree air fresheners, and the automotive fragrance industry sells tens of millions of dollars worth of products annually to Australian drivers who are trying to address interior odor problems that those products are fundamentally incapable of solving. An air freshener masks odor. It does not eliminate the source. Hydrogen peroxide eliminates odor at the source by oxidizing and destroying the organic compounds responsible for the smell, rather than covering them with a competing fragrance. For odors caused by bacterial activity, which includes the vast majority of persistent vehicle interior smells, including smoke smell, pet odor, mildew smell, and the general stale odor that accumulates in heavily used vehicles, hydrogen peroxide applied to the affected surfaces is categorically more effective than any fragrance-based product. The application is straightforward. A dilute solution of 3% hydrogen peroxide sprayed onto carpet, upholstery, and headliner surfaces, allowed to dry naturally with the windows open, will eliminate bacterial odor sources rather than merely covering them. For smoke smell specifically, which penetrates deeply into porous materials, multiple treatments combined with thorough ventilation will produce better results than a single application. The residual smell of hydrogen peroxide itself dissipates as it dries, leaving no persistent scent. Before we get into the remaining uses that mechanics are least likely to volunteer, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. We put out content like this regularly, and the next video covers another product that the automotive industry marks up dramatically over its genuine cost. You will want to know about it. Number 7. It can help identify coolant system leaks. Finding small coolant leaks in an automotive cooling system is a diagnostic challenge that can consume significant workshop time, and therefore significant customer money, when the leak is too small to produce obvious pooling but large enough to cause progressive coolant loss and the associated overheating risk. A dilute hydrogen peroxide solution introduced into the coolant system in very small quantities, and with the understanding that this is a diagnostic technique rather than a treatment, will produce visible bubbling or fizzing at the point of any leak because the peroxide reacts with the metal compounds and contaminants present at the leak site. This can help locate leaks that are not immediately apparent through visual inspection. This is a technique that requires care and a clear understanding of its limitations. Hydrogen peroxide in the cooling system is not a sealant and is not a repair. It is a diagnostic tool, and the vehicle should be flushed and the cooling system properly refilled after the diagnostic procedure is complete. Using it as a substitute for proper leak investigation and repair is not appropriate. Using it to identify where the proper repair needs to happen is a legitimate application. Number 8. It cleans rubber seals and restores their appearance. The rubber seals around doors, windows, and the boot of a vehicle are exposed to the full range of Australian weather conditions: UV radiation, extreme heat, ozone, and the general atmospheric pollution that degrades rubber compounds over time. They oxidize, they discolor, they develop surface mildew, and they lose the supple flexibility that allows them to seal effectively against wind and water intrusion. The dedicated rubber seal treatments sold in automotive retailers are mostly silicone and polymer-based conditioning products that address the flexibility and sealing function of the rubber. But before those products can be effective, the surface oxidation, mildew, and accumulated grime on the seal needs to be removed. Hydrogen peroxide is an effective first step in that process. It cleans and sanitizes the rubber surface, removes mildew and surface contamination, and prepares the seal for conditioning treatment. Do not use high-concentration hydrogen peroxide on rubber seals for extended contact periods. Prolonged exposure to strong oxidizing agents will degrade the rubber compound itself. The 3% pharmacy solution, applied briefly and rinsed or wiped off promptly, is the appropriate application. Number 9. It removes biological contamination from paintwork. Bird droppings, tree sap, and insect splatter are among the most damaging contaminants that land on automotive paintwork, and they are among the most common on Australian roads, where certain environments make them essentially unavoidable. The damage they cause is not from their initial presence, but from the time they spend on the paint surface. The acidic compounds in bird droppings and the complex organic chemistry of tree sap will etch into clear coat within hours in hot Australian conditions. Hydrogen peroxide is highly effective at breaking down the organic compounds in bird droppings and insect splatter, making removal faster and less mechanically aggressive, meaning less risk of scratching the paint surface through the rubbing action required to remove dried contamination. Apply to the affected area, allow 30 to 60 seconds of contact time, and gently wipe away. The oxidizing action of the hydrogen peroxide breaks down the organic compounds at a molecular level, reducing the adhesion that makes dried bird droppings and insect matter so stubbornly resistant to water washing alone. For tree sap, which has a more complex chemical composition, hydrogen peroxide is a useful initial treatment, but may need to be followed by a dedicated sap remover or isopropyl alcohol for complete removal. Test on an inconspicuous area first, work on cool paint in shade, and rinse promptly after application. Number 10. It tells you things about your engine that your mechanic charges to diagnose. This is the most technically significant application on the list, and it is the one that mechanics are least likely to publicize because it relates to a diagnostic function that workshops charge significant money for. Head gasket failure is one of the most serious and most expensive mechanical problems an Australian vehicle owner can face. Early detection, before catastrophic coolant loss or engine overheating causes secondary damage, is enormously valuable because a head gasket replaced at the first sign of failure costs a fraction of a head gasket replaced after the engine has overheated multiple times and damaged valves, warped the head, or scored cylinder walls. A chemical block test using hydrogen peroxide as part of the testing solution can detect combustion gases in the coolant, one of the earliest and most reliable indicators of head gasket compromise, before coolant loss becomes significant and before the driver notices any symptom other than a very gradual coolant level reduction. The test involves drawing air from above the coolant reservoir through a hydrogen peroxide solution while the engine is warm. The presence of combustion gases causes a distinctive color change reaction. This is not a definitive replacement for the comprehensive cooling system pressure test and combustion gas analysis that a competent workshop will perform. It is an early warning indicator that tells you whether a more thorough investigation is warranted before the problem progresses to the stage where it becomes expensive. And knowing enough to ask for that investigation, rather than waiting until the temperature gauge climbs into the red on a summer highway, is the kind of knowledge that saves Australian car owners significant money and significant stress. The honest bottom line, hydrogen peroxide is not a miracle product, and this video is not trying to tell you that it is. It will not fix mechanical failures. It will not replace genuine maintenance. and used carelessly, at high concentrations, on inappropriate surfaces, without understanding what it does and does not do, it can cause damage rather than prevent it. What it is, honestly, is a genuinely useful, genuinely affordable, and genuinely underutilized tool that belongs in the maintenance kit of every Australian vehicle owner who wants to reduce their dependence on expensive workshop visits for problems they can address themselves safely and effectively. The mechanic who has not told you about it is not necessarily being dishonest. He is operating in an industry where the financial incentive points firmly away from teaching customers self-sufficiency. Understanding what hydrogen peroxide can do does not make that mechanic your enemy. It just makes you a more informed customer, and in the Australian automotive market in 2026, being an informed customer is worth considerably more than most people realize. If this kind of practical, honest automotive content is what you have been looking for, subscribe right now and turn on notifications. We cover the products, the techniques, and the industry practices that save Australian drivers real money on real vehicles. Share this with anyone you know who owns a car and has ever felt like they were paying more than they should at the workshop, which is most Australian drivers.